first started introducing us, they mentioned Nez Perce like Nez Perce was a person. We're a group of people. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
I hate to ask that. I asked that one time and a guy way in the back said, I can't, but go ahead. No, since all of us having to suffer. So, my name is White Bull. This was the name of my great-great-grandfather. This name was given to me by a friend of the family who was a storyteller, and he taught me many of the stories and the traditions of our people. So tonight we're going to take part in a tradition that goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years, and that is the tradition of Nez Perce hospitality. It's something that we did when Lewis and Clark visited this area. We shared our music, our stories, our dance, all of our culture, and we're going to continue that here tonight with you. So, over the years, we've been known by many different names. And today we're commonly referred to as the Nez Perce. And Nez Perce, that is actually a misnomer. It was a mistranslation of the sign language that was used to refer to our people before we had horses. We were known as the ones that come down out of the mountains, or the ones that walk out of the mountains. And so the symbol went like this. You go from up in the mountains and you come down out of the mountains in a straight line. And that's how we were known by all of the other people around us. Well, as this symbol started traveling, it started to change. And by the time the French trappers saw this symbol, people were crossing their face with their finger. And the French trappers interpreted that as Nez Perce, pierced nose. And so when they came to this part of the country, they wanted to contact the ones that come down out of the mountains, but they were using the wrong symbol. And so all of the tribes along the Columbia River were all considered to be related. We consider them to be sister tribes. And like with any family, we tease one another. And so it had to have been one of our Umatilla cousins said, oh yeah, that's them over there. And that's how we got stuck with the name Nez Perce, pierced nose, and we didn't even pierce our noses. Later on, the name was anglicized, and it turned into Nez Perce. So then people ask, well, what do you call yourselves? So we call ourselves Nimipu. Oh, what does that mean? That means really good-looking Indians. It actually means the people, but I like my translation better. And you know, we really should consider changing the definition of the word Nimipu. It should be really good-looking Indians, because we've got the proof to back it up. You read in the Lewis and Clark journals, they talk about how good-looking the Nez Perce people are. You know, back in the day, those journals, that was like the internet. You can't put anything in there that's not true. So, we were known as the Nimipu. Let's just say that we'll break it down really into a couple, maybe 2-3 syllables. So first you say ni, me, poo, Nimipu. All right, 10 out of 10. Now we'll start with something else. Now, how do you say crackers? Shlap, shlap. Or no, gush, gush. I love teaching non-native speakers Nez Perce language. Now, how do you spell gush, gush? Boy, it got quiet. Now you know why we had an oral tradition. So, we were also known as the blue face paint people. Those of us in the Wallowa Valley, there was an area that had a blue clay that we would use to paint our faces, so we were known as the blue face paint people. And blue was a very rare color to be able to get. So we were known as the blue face paint people, and as you'll learn by our creation story, we were also known as Itzayaya Nimamayats, children of the Coyote. Coyote plays a very big role in a lot of our legends. So today we're going to start out this evening with some dance. When we gather, we always dance, we tell stories, a lot of times we'll play games. And so we're going to start off with what today is known as Grand Entry. So if you go to a modern powwow today, you'll see this. And it comes from a tradition that our people had, where when the men would come back from battle, they would hold a ceremony and they would dance. And they always started these ceremonies with what they called the brave man's dance. And only the experienced warriors could go out there and dance. And what was happening is these people, they were healing. They would come back from battle with heavy hearts. They may have lost friends. They may have been wounded. And so they would come out onto that dance floor, dancing single file. And that lead dancer, he would take all of that heartache, all of those bad feelings, and he would leave that on the dance floor. And the person coming behind him would stamp it out with his feet as he danced through. And then he would leave all of his bad feelings on the floor. So in the Grand Entry, you have the veterans holding all the flags and the eagle staffs. And then you have the powwow royalty. And then you have all of the dancers will line up single file, starting from the oldest to the youngest, men's golden age, women's golden age, and all the different categories, all the way until you get down to the little tiny tots. And they all come in on the dance floor single file, doing this dance, dancing their style. So we'll begin by doing this here tonight for you. Pictures and videos are okay. We're sharing this with you so you can take these memories home with you and share them with your friends and your loved ones.
Chesachot Pesia Ardan Louis Squext Okay Goetzenaupa give you a little introductions in each of my languages that I know. First I said hello everybody, my name is Ardan McDonald. Also I said hello in my Blackfeet language and also in my Karis in San Felipe from Albuquerque area. I'm 24 years old. I'm a member of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes of Western Montana on the Flathead Reservation. That's just about a 5.5 hour drive here. If any of you have been to Missoula, Montana, my reservation's just north of there. I've been singing and dancing in the powwow circle my whole life. My mother and father are both powwow singers and dancers. My mother was a traditional dancer, as kind of what Dana's style is here, but she wore a different top it was a fully beaded top, whereas this is Dana's style is a little different, and I'll let her explain that a little later. My father himself, he's a traditional dancer. He has as well as a different style than what JR is wearing. He has a big bustle with golden eagle feathers, and he also wears a roach from the porcupine quills and deer hair. A little bit more about myself. I've been singing for the last 8 or 9 years with 12-time Grammy-nominated Black Lodge singers. Them themselves, the group is out of White Swan, Washington, the Yakima Reservation, by way of Browning, Montana, of the Blackfeet Reservation. Me, myself, we recorded a CD in 2019, which actually got us one of the 12 Grammy nominations, so luckily enough, I got to be a part of that. We were so close to winning, but we didn't get it that year, so hopefully soon this summer, next summer, we can put out another CD for show all of our songs, so you guys can enjoy those. The couple of questions I get the most about being a singer is the drums, and I'd say my voice. The style of drum I have here is just a little small hand drum. Predominantly, I have known these little hand drums to come from the Cree people out of Canada, and also out of by way of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe land of Minnesota and Ontario area. Also, my family comes by way of the Rocky Boy Reservation, and they're also part Cree, just in Montana. The small drums here, these are just meant for just individuals, just an individual hand drum for myself for little events like this, for a little gig. Or we have traditional singing, they call it round dance, and it would be myself and about the biggest biggest round dance I've been to, there was like 30, 40, there's about 50 singers, individual singers, and we all sat around one table about the size of this floor. And then there was probably 200 dancers, men and women, just dancing around us. And that goes from 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. Yeah, that goes sun up, sun down with those things. And usually at the powwows, has anybody ever been to a powwow? Yeah. Okay, so if you've been to a powwow, you'll see the regular drums. They'll have a bigger drum than this, and they set it on the ground. And those are kind of about 25 inches, about 25 inches round, about 20 inches high, and it's just enough to sit on a regular folding chair. All the drums here, this drum here, I think this is made of a deer hide. They normally come by deer or whatever hide you kind of have at your dispose. I know they use elk a lot. Buffalo is another one. Steer is another good hide to use. And I haven't seen it a whole lot, but I had a family member of mine, one of my grandfathers, he told me when they were younger in the 70s, and they had a drum. It was an octagon drum like this, but it was a big drum for the powwow, and it was made of horse. Yeah, so they didn't have any cattle, they didn't have any steer, and then those times all of the wild game was becoming, a little bit more scarce due to fur trapping and such like that. So they used horse, and that didn't last too long, but not like a buffalo. They're not as sturdy as like a buffalo. Another thing that, as I mentioned in my voice, I've been singing for so long that this just comes naturally for me. But the question that I get asked the most is it kind of like what I can compare it to best to describe it to is kind of like opera singing, where you're holding the note and then dropping it, bringing in was the falsetto, a high tone, and that's just there's different styles of singing. Me myself, Me, myself, you heard me sing in a kind of a higher tone, and that's what we call the northern style of singing. As I mentioned as well, I'm from the San Felipe people. I have southern blood in my roots. So there's also the southern way of style of singing where they sing really deep and really bassy. There's no high tones that you'll hear tonight in most of my songs. I will give the microphone over here to Dana so she can introduce herself and talk about her style of dance. Lunch.
Tats Kalawa Inamanekwas Dana Sodamish Ka Inwash Lapwe Kanich. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dana Sodamish, and this evening I am dressed in a northern style traditional outfit. Traditionally, our outfits are actually made out of two hides. We would either use deer hides or bighorn sheep hides. But tonight I'm wearing a cloth dress because as we transitioned and we acquired this cloth, we started making our dresses similar. It's still in this wing dress style that we would traditionally make. But I like cloth because it is getting a little warmer outside. So this is a lot lighter and a lot easier to work in. This dress is something I would also wear in our longhouse. So that's like one of our forms of a religion is our longhouse style. So this is like one of the dresses I would wear because it is more plain and without like the fringe on there, it's a lot easier to work with because when we're in longhouse, we know we're doing cooking, we're serving, and we're dancing. So it's a kind of a lot of stuff that we do. So it's a lot easier just to wear a simple, more plain style dress when we're doing things like that. In my hair, as you can see, I'm wearing some plumes up top. These plumes were given to me by my Uncle Gary, and I also have a fan here. These are both eagle feathers. This would be like the tail of the eagle, and then this would be like its belly, right?
Yeah, the plumes that come off of the belly.
Off of like the belly of the eagle. And then moving down in my earrings, these are actually made out of porcupine quills. And I also have a couple of butterflies on here because Lapwai, it means land of the butterflies. So I always like to have a couple little items with butterflies on them to represent my homelands. Porcupine quills was our first form of beadwork. So before we acquired these beads, we would always adorn ourselves in these porcupine quills. And to do the porcupine quills, we do use traditional dyes. So that would be such as huckleberries or they could be roots. But now, today, people even use like Rit dye, or I've even heard people use Kool-Aid to dye their porcupine quills. So we just use whatever we can have. And then moving down in my hair, I have these heart shells. JR will explain a little bit about the story later, but we're also known as the heart people. So whenever I'm wearing some of my outfits, or a lot of our women, we always wear these heart shells to represent our people at home. And in my hair, these are some Nez Perce made hair ties. This is done by a local artist. Her name is Michaela Thompson. My leggings down here, these are made by my cousin, and my moccasins are made by my auntie. So my family takes really good care of me to put together my outfit for me. But I do sew some of my own outfits when I do dance at powwows. This is just more my traditional stuff. So when I'm wearing my traditional stuff, it's more stuff that's been passed down to me than when I'm wearing my contemporary outfit. My purse here, this was my grandma's purse. There is an elk on it. The elk was one of our main sources of food. So a lot of us will have different items from the elk. I'm even wearing an elk tooth necklace. This is actually made by my boyfriend back here. And then I also made the shirt that he's wearing. And then I'm also carrying a shawl because we as women, as traditional dancers, we always like to carry our shawl because we'd always kind of carry shawls around with us when we were traveling to wrap around us and either keep us warm or if we had a child, we would wrap the child in the shawl. So we always carry shawls with us, even today when we're dancing, to represent that. And then on my belt here, I have this scarf. These scarves actually come originally from like Ukraine and Russia, but this is one of our first trade items that we got. So you'll see these scarves used from tribes all over the country because this was one of our big trade items that all tribes would use throughout the U.S. And we even have some for sale back here if you wanted to buy a couple. We have our shop back there. And then this evening I will be doing a straight style and a round dance. So the straight style, is a high step fashion, and I dance in this high step because when you go outside, we have all these like tall grasses, and especially for me, because I'm a little shorter, I always have to kind of step over the grass like this. So when I dance, I sort of dance in that same way. And I never dance in a straight line because we dance the way of the land, so we always like travel with the way that the land moves. So that's why I'm always dancing in a zigzag formation. Thank you.
So while Dana is doing a quick change to show you another style of dance, I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm wearing today. I do a very old style dance where we don't wear any bells and we don't wear feather bustle, what we call the apatas titsan. The feather bustle was something that was given to us by the Sioux after they helped us in 1877. They gave us several songs and they gave us that tradition of wearing the feather bustles. So I dance in the old style, no bustle, no bells. And when you go to powwows today, a lot of the dancers, they'll wear those bustles, they'll wear those bells. Some of the chicken dancers and round bustle dancers, they'll even get sleigh bells and they'll wear sleigh bells from their hip all the way down to their ankles. So I don't wear bells, that way you can't tell if I don't stop on time. Because in competition, if you don't stop on time, they'll knock points off. So you can't ever catch me not stopping on time. That's why they call me JR Stops on Time. So the hat or takma that I'm wearing tonight, this is what was known as a death's head hat. It was also referred to as a wormy hat because when the wind blows through the ermine skins, it looks like maggots on a buffalo head. And it was the type of hat that was worn only by the most deadly warriors. You had to earn the right to wear the split horn hat. So they would take the buffalo horn caps off, and if you cut them just right, you can make 4 hats and 2 spoons out of 1 set of buffalo horn caps. And this also made them very light, and the hat can fold completely flat, make for easy transport. So as I said, only the most deadly warriors wore this style of hat. And the red is a symbol of the blood the warriors are willing to shed in defense of the people. The red horsehair on the tips of the horns. Today that acts as a warning that if you go to Yellowstone, don't try to pet the fluffy cows. So I wrap my braids in otter fur because it keeps our braids nice and tidy and also makes my hair look much longer. These were the first hair extensions. So we believe that by wearing furs and feathers, we can take on some of the characteristics of these animals. So the otters are known for being very stealthy, but they're also very playful. And when we go to our salmon camps, the elders, they'd go to bed for the evening, but before they went to sleep, one of them would yell, "Youngest!" The youngest one in the camp had to stay up all night on otter watch. Because those otters are very stealthy, they would come up in the middle of the night and they would eat your salmon right off your stringers. You'd wake up in the morning, nothing but heads and tails. So someone had to stay up and scare those otters away. So this otter, he tried to take my salmon, but I talked him out of it. I got a really ugly look one time. I was like, I was just joking. I didn't kill him. He died and left me everything. So the necklace, one of the necklaces that I'm wearing is made from clamshell discs. It was our first form of money. We used shells to trade with. That was our form of currency. And so this necklace here is what's known today as wampum or shell money. Very expensive. Even today, the very end of these, about 2 inches worth, that's about $200 on the antique market today. On the very end, you see these colorful beads, the large pony beads. These are the first trade beads that were brought here to this country. As the beads got smaller and smaller, they became more valuable and they had beautiful colors. So you started out with the large pony beads, you went down all the way to size 10, size 12, size 13, size 14, and that's what my vest is made of, is size 14 seed beads. And these are cut beads. So they put a little facet in the bead so it catches the light, and that's why my vest shimmers the way it does. This vest is 100 years old. So to kind of demonstrate the difference between the two styles of beads, I have these, what we commonly call a hip purse. So when I got these, a guy asked me, well, what are those for? I said, well, that's your pocket. Because with these leggings, I got no pockets. So that's your pocket. You put it on your belt. And so the pink one is made from all cut beads, and then the white one is regular beads. And we love the beads because we can pass those around. The colors didn't fade because long ago we used natural dyes. And over time the colors would fade. But with the beads, the colors didn't fade at all. They were very beautiful. They lasted a long time. We also used hide, buckskin to make our clothing. But when our people were exiled in Oklahoma Territory, Indian country, the place we called the Yakispa, it was too hot for hide clothing, and so we adopted the cloth. So the gauntlets that I wear today, my grandmother made these, and she actually tanned the hide as well. And she was a beautiful, beautiful bead worker. And those gauntlets are also 100 years old. They built to last. They have a few repairs on them, but nothing really major. So, looks like Dana's ready. Man, that was fast. I don't know if I can change outfits that fast anymore. I know one time I was working for a tribal outreach program at the Filbert Festival over in Eugene, Oregon. They didn't have any place for me to change, and I had to change really fast. I ended up having to change in a honey bucket. Man, the most holiest of places. Keep your otter furs out of there.
Okay, so now I am dressed in a jingle dress. So when you go to powwows, there are 3 different styles in the women's category. There's women's traditional, which is what I started in earlier. There's women's fancy, and then there's jingle. So I'm dressed in jingle. So that's how I'm able to dance this style is through powwows. So this is a shared style of dance. This dance actually originates all the way from the Anishinaabe Ojibwe people, which is in present-day Minnesota up into Canada area. And the history of this dance is that there was this man and his granddaughter was sick, and all the traditional medicines that they tried to use for her, nothing was working. And so that man, he prayed really hard for this young girl, and then that night he had this dream. And in that dream, he seen these women, like these 4 women dancing around this young girl in these simple jingle dresses. And so the next day, that man, he created and he made these dresses for his family members, and they put these dresses on and they started to dance in that same sidestep motion that that man seen in his dream. And so they started to sidestep dance around that young girl, and eventually she started to get better and she started to come out of her sickness, and she was able to put on her own jingle dress and begin sidestep dancing with the rest of those women. So that's why today it is known as a healing style of dance. And you will still see this healing dance performed at different powwows in a ceremony type fashion, but we also do have it like the style that I'm dressed as a contemporary style. So this would be more of like the contest version of the powwow dance. I travel extensively all over the US and in Canada dancing jingle. I do also dance traditional, but most of the time you'll see me in this jingle dress. The dress I'm wearing today, this is one I actually made myself. I typically have been making mostly all my own jingle dresses now. I've been sewing for about 5 or 6 years. And traditionally these cones, like the lids, they're made out of rolled tobacco lids, but I actually, chewing tobacco lids. And then I actually just got these at the trading post, so in Lapway. So you can find the cones at different trading posts or even at powwows, so vendors will sell them. So that's kind of how I acquire my cones. The people ask like the formation of the cones, how I lay them out. I kind of just lay them out how I think looks good because when we're at powwows, we are being judged, and sometimes they do judge us on our outfits, so we want to try and look our best at all times. So I just kind of try and make the dresses as best as I can, and so hopefully I get some good scores. But today I'll be doing, again, 2 styles, so I'll be doing a straight style, and then I will be doing the side step that I talked about earlier. I'll be doing that style of dance. Again, this is a contemporary style, so this is an old style, so just keep that in mind. Katsiaga.
Good for you.
Judges say they want one more song. So traditionally, stories were only told in the winter months or when you're traveling, because it was very quiet in those winter months. There wasn't a whole lot to do, and we tend to hear things better in the quiet of those winter months. But we also told stories as we traveled, because many of these stories, they dealt with landmarks. And so it was said that if you tell these stories in a certain order, you can get anywhere you want to go in Nez Perce territory. All of these stories and these landmarks, they created a roadmap of the territory that we roamed through. So in these stories was all of the knowledge of our people. The children would hear these stories from the time that they were in cradle boards all the way until they grew up, and they became the ones to tell the stories to the children. In these stories, the children would learn about their surroundings, why the landscape is shaped the way it is, why animals are shaped the way they are, why they behave the way they do, what plants you could use and what time of the year they're ready to be harvested, and how much of that plant you could use at one time. So this is how the knowledge of our people was passed down from generation to generation. And so I'm always really amazed at how easily our knowledge gets brushed aside because it's not considered to be scientific. All of our knowledge is contained in stories. And so when the academics come and want to learn about Nez Perce territory, we tell them our stories, and they're all disappointed because they think that we don't want to share information with them and we're just telling them stories. But then they do their scientific studies. We had one group of academics, they came, wanted to learn about Nez Perce territory, told them our stories, they didn't believe us. Then they went and did geological surveys in the Columbia Basin, and they came back and they were all excited. They said, guess what? We just discovered there used to be a great big lake to the west. Duh. Did we not just tell you that? So one of my elders, he was speaking to a group of people, and he explained it. He said, we have stories about all of these Ice Age floods. We knew about the Great Missoula flood, how it carved out the area there all the way from modern-day Missoula, Montana, clear across Coeur d'Alene, Spokane, Medical Lake, went all the way down south into the Tri-Cities area and an area that they called Lake Lewis. There was another big lake down near Portland. We have a story about how Coyote created the Columbia River and brought salmon to his people. We have the stories about the people seeking refuge up on Steptoe Butte. We have those stories because our people lived through that, and they told about what they saw. We have stories about two great ice dams up in the Salmon River country, and when they burst, that's what carved out the Hells Canyon area in this valley. We have those stories because our ancestors lived through that, and they told the story about what they saw. And today we know that many of these floods, they took place over 20,000 years ago. And the academics used to always tell us, your people are only here for 14,000 years. Oh, really? My oral tradition goes back a little further than that. And now they're slowly starting to prove it. So thank you for doing your studies and proving that my stories are true. So one of the first stories that the children hear is about how Coyote created people. And in this story, we'll learn about several different animals, but we'll also learn about the different people that you'll meet when you travel in the different directions. So during the time of Titwatityaya, or legend days, Coyote lived here in this valley. And every springtime, he would travel up onto the Palouse Prairie to visit his cousin, the fox. One spring, while Coyote was away, a huge monster came up out of the ocean onto the land. This monster was so large, when he'd open his mouth and draw in a breath, all of the plants and animals would fly into his stomach. This monster's name was Eletzoetzig, the swallowing monster. Now, Meadowlark, he knew Coyote was very smart and had great power. Coyote would be able to defeat this monster. So Meadowlark flew as fast as he could to find Coyote. 3 days later, he came to Fox's den, and Meadowlark hollered, "It's a yaya! It's a yaya! Come, my humtits! Coyote, Coyote, come quick!" Coyote came rushing out of Fox's den and asked Meadowlark what was going on. And Meadowlark told Coyote about this huge monster that was devouring all of the animal people. So Coyote came up with a plan to defeat this monster. He went to the trees and he began to gather pitch. When he had enough pitch, he made a large ball and he put that in his sack. Then Coyote gathered 5 stone knives. He wrapped them in clean buckskin and he put those in his sack. Then Coyote gathered hemp, and Coyote braided this hemp into a good strong rope. He bundled that up and he put that in his sack. When Coyote had gathered all of the tools that he would need to defeat this monster, he went to the sweat lodge and he crawled inside and he sweat for a long time, really hot to clean himself because he didn't want to taste bad to this monster. When he was finished, he came out. Coyote gathered his things and he returned to this valley. Coyote could see the monster sleeping down in the valley, so he took out his rope and he tied one end around his waist. He tied the other end around a mountain. And Coyote hollered at this monster, "Eletzoetzik, you can't devour me, my power's too strong." The monster woke up and he looked around, but he didn't see anyone. All he heard was that voice, "Eletzoetzik, you can't devour me, my power's too strong." The monster opened his mouth and drew in a breath, but Coyote just went to the end of his rope and stopped. Coyote started singing songs, teasing this monster, trying to get him angry. He'd sing, "Kutskutzenich, uneye, uneye, kutskutzenich, uneye, uneye." And oh, the monster got angry. He emptied out his lungs and he drew in a huge breath. This time Coyote cut his rope and he went flying into the monster's stomach. It was really dark in there. Coyote couldn't see anything, so he took out his ball of pitch and he built a fire. And the fat melted from the monster's heart and it dripped into the fire and kept it going. The monster gripped his chest. Oh, that Coyote. Whew. Oh, the heartburn, it was so bad. Oh, poor monster. There's no such thing as Pepsid AC. Now Coyote, he could see. Many of the animals already devoured, nothing but bone. Some of the animals were sick and others were scared. So Coyote told these animals, "You gather up all these bones and you put them in front of all of the holes in the monster. Because when he takes his last breath, he'll open up. You kick those bones out and follow right behind." So the animals gathered up all the bones and they put them in front of all of the holes in the monster. Now Coyote, he reached down to get his knives. And Rattlesnake was there. Rattlesnake snapped at Coyote. Coyote asked Rattlesnake, "Why are you snapping at me? I'm here to save you. You move aside, let me go to work." But Rattlesnake, he wouldn't listen. So Coyote got mad and stepped on his head. That's why to this day, Rattlesnake's head is flat. Coyote took out one of his knives and he went over to the heart of the monster. And Grizzly Bear was standing in the way. Coyote told Grizzly Bear, "Move aside so I can go to work." Now Grizzly Bear, he didn't like being bossed around by this little Coyote. So he roared at Coyote and he swung at Coyote with his huge paws. Coyote asked Grizzly Bear, "Why are you roaring at me? I'm here to save you. You move aside and be quiet. Let me go to work." Konma, himosaw. But Grizzly Bear, he wouldn't listen. So Coyote got mad and punched him in the nose. That's why to this day, Grizzly Bear's nose is short and flat. Coyote took his knife and he began to cut on the heart of the monster. And the monster rolled around in agony, hollering, "Coyote, come out!" But Coyote wouldn't listen. He just kept cutting away. Coyote slipped and broke his knife. So he picked up another knife and he kept cutting on the monster's heart. And the monster began to beg Coyote to come out. He'd say, "Coyote, Coyote, come out. Come out my ear." Coyote said, "No, I'm not coming out your ear, because then all the animal people make fun of me. And they'll say, 'Oh, there goes old man Coyote, a ball of earwax.'" Again, Coyote slipped and broke his knife. So he picked up another knife and he kept cutting away. And the monster kept begging Coyote to come out. He'd say, "Coyote, Coyote, come out. Come out my nose." Coyote said, "No, I'm not coming out your nose, because then all the animal people will say, 'Oh, there goes old man Coyote, a ball of snot.'" Again, Coyote slipped and broke his knife. So he picked up another knife and he kept cutting away. And oh, the monster, he was getting desperate. He said, "Coyote, Coyote, come out. Come out the back." Coyote said, no, I'm staying right here. Finally, Coyote, he was down to his last knife. There's only one piece of flesh holding the heart in place. Coyote turned to the animals and he said, get ready, this monster's gonna die. When he takes his last breath and he opens up, you kick those bones out and follow right behind. Go quickly, because there won't be much time. Coyote reached up and he started to cut, and he slipped and he broke his knife. So he grabbed the heart and he pulled as hard as he could. Finally, the heart broke free. The monster took one last huge breath and he opened up. The animals kicked the bones out and followed right behind. Now, Raccoon, he wasn't sure which way to go. Finally, he decided to run up towards the back. Raccoon ran as fast as he could, but just as his body cleared, the monster began to close up and his tail got stuck. He had to pull a few times to get his tail free. Raccoon, he was so relieved to be free of the monster. He thought he was going to be stuck there for good. And he reached up and he wiped the sweat from his brow. That's why to this day, Raccoon has those rings around his tail and that mask. And you always find him down by the water washing his hands. Now, Muskrat, he's a crazy little animal. The elders, they say Muskrat, he's really conceited. Because every time you see Muskrat, he's always grooming himself. And Muskrat's sitting in the belly of the monster, grooming away. All the animals are just looking at him and saying, "What's that? Who's going to see you down here?" That didn't matter to Muskrat. He had to look good all the time. So he's sitting in the belly of the monster, grooming away. He looks around and he notices he's all by himself. He had to figure out what to do, and quick. So Muskrat decided he was going to follow Raccoon, because after all, he is much smaller and he thought he was a lot quicker. Muskrat ran as fast as he could, but just as his body cleared, the monster closed up tight. And Muskrat pulled and pulled and pulled, but he couldn't get his tail free. So he called for Coyote. "It's a yaya, it's a yaya, help, I'm stuck." Coyote looked around the body of this huge monster. He didn't see anyone. "Minihewis, where are you?" "I'm underneath the monster's tail." So Coyote walked around to the back of the monster. Sure enough, there's Muskrat. Coyote grabbed Muskrat's paws and he started to count. Nox, Lepiet, Metot, and he pulled as hard as he could. When Coyote did this, it pulled all the fur off Muskrat's tail. And Coyote scolded Muskrat. He said, "I told you to hurry up. I told you you didn't have much time, but you just dawdled along. From now on, all of your descendants will be reminded of how pokey you are." That's why to this day, Muskrat has no fur on his tail. Many of the animals, they said, "Oh, let that monster's body lie there and rot. Serves him right for coming up out of the land and causing all this trouble." But Coyote, he had a use for this monster. He told the animals, "Arrange these bones. And be careful and don't mix them up. Last thing we need is an elk with deer legs." So the animals, they arranged all the bones. Coyote took the blood from the monster. He smeared it all over the bones. And one by one, Coyote jumped over each of the skeletons. And all the animal people that died inside the monster came back to life. Then Coyote cut off the monster's legs. And he threw them way up north into a place we call Canada today. From that place, the long-legged people will be from. That's where the tall Blackfoots are from. Coyote cut off the monster's head. He threw that way over to the east into a place we call Montana today. From that place, the Flathead people are from. And Coyote did this, cutting off parts of this monster, and he threw these parts in all different directions, and people sprang up from those parts. Flathead, Salish, Kootenai, Coeur d'Alene, Blackfoot, Spokane, Yakima, Walla Walla, Cayuse, Umatilla, Wasco, Warm Springs, Paiute, Shoshone. All these people sprang from the parts of this monster. Finally, there was nothing left but the heart and a few ribs. The animals came to Coyote and they said, "Well, what about this place here? It's very beautiful. You didn't put anyone here." So Coyote, he told Crane, "Go down to the river and get some water." Coyote picked up the heart of the monster and he squeezed the blood from the heart. He took the water and he washed the blood from his paws. As the blood hit the ground, people sprang up. And Coyote said, "These people, they'll live here in this beautiful place. They won't be a very big people because I've deprived them, but they'll have big hearts and they'll be the fiercest on the battlefield." And that's how the Nez Perce come to live in this area. And that's how Coyote created people. So today, if if you go on up the Clearwater River here, today it's about a 40-minute drive. Back in 1805, it took Lewis and Clark almost a week. But up there along the Clearwater River, you'll see this great big mound. And that's the heart of the monster. And they say that's where the Nez Perce people were created. See, we have a creation story. We don't have a migration story. Other tribes, they have migration stories. Like my father, he's from the Bad River Band of Lake Superior, Ojibwe in Wisconsin. And the Anishinaabe people were told to travel to where the food grows on water. And they came to the Great Lakes area and they saw those sloughs full of wild rice, the Manomin, food growing on water. We have a creation story. We don't have a migration story. We were created from this earth, the waters of these rivers, and the blood of that monster created the Nimipu people. Now, when Lewis and Clark came stumbling out of the Bitterroots down onto the Wiyat Prairie, they weren't doing very well. They were just starving. They were starting to eat their horses. They said that their clothes were just hanging off of their thin frames. And so they stumbled across the Nez Perce camp. And we had never seen white people before. We'd heard stories. And we had prophets that told of these strange creatures that would come to this land and all the things they would bring with them. And at the time, Lewis and Clark, they were carrying with them the largest arsenal west of the Mississippi. We didn't have firearms at the time. We were still using our sheep-horn bows. A lot of our enemies to the north, they had firearms. They were trading with the British. But we didn't have firearms at the time, so when the people gathered to decide what to do about these strange creatures, many of our people said we should kill them. They don't belong here. They're not our people. They're nobody that we know. And they're traveling with one of our enemies. They had a Shoshone among them. The Shoshone were our enemies. This old lady heard all of this. She said, "Bring them here. I want to see them." When this old lady was a little girl, her family went into buffalo country and they were attacked by an enemy tribe. And this little girl was taken as a prisoner and she was traded and sold many times, each time moving further and further east away from her people. She ended up clear over near the New York State area. And she was purchased by a French-Canadian family and they gave her a choice. She was a young woman by this time. They told her, "You can stay here with us or you can go home." And she wanted to come home, so she started traveling to the east. And along the way, she was helped out by these people. She said they were real funny looking. They wore strange clothes. They had real pale skin. They had different colored eyes. Some of them had big wide fish eyes. Some of the men had upside down faces. They had hair growing on the wrong side of their head. Some of the women had really amakastitsan, big backsides. She saw women wearing bustles under their dresses. She thought that they were shaped like that under there. Some of them may have been. But she was very grateful to these people for helping her come back home. This old lady's name was Wakois, which means one that was taken and then came back. And she looked out on Lewis and Clark. She said, "Do these ones no harm. These are the ones that helped me." So we treated them good. We fed them, gave them shelter, showed them how to make canoes and how to navigate these rivers so they could get to where they wanted to go. They were navigating these rivers during a time that if you didn't know the river, you had no business being on it. These rivers could get very dangerous, especially down in that lower Snake River Canyon. And we sent scouts along with them to help them and also to introduce them to the people they would meet down on the Columbia River. They wrote everything down in their journals, and they even copied each other's journals so that way if something happened to one of them, there would always be a record of what took place. And so these starving men, they gorged themselves on our rich foods. Our hasu, the lamprey, very rich, very oily. Our salmon, the natsok. Our kakit, the wild potato. Tsuwik, the wild carrot. Walim tims, the choke cherries. Kames, kaus, the biscuit root. Liton, the bitter roots. All of these rich foods, these men just gorged themselves. And that night they wrote in their journals, first night among the Nez Perce, a great thunder hit the camp. And a foul wind blew through the village. And so now you know what happened that first night among the Nez Perce. So by the time Lewis and Clark came to this part of the country, we Nimipu people had already had a nearly 100-year relationship with the horse, and we became one of the great horse tribes. We were one of the few people that practiced selective breeding, and we bred a horse that was well suited for this part of the country. Lewis and Clark noted in their journals how fine our horses looked, and they also noted that we were using a method to gild our horses that was far superior to that which was being used in the East at that time. Our horses recovered much faster. So, our people, we became a horse tribe. When we would travel, the women would hang their cradle boards on the side of their saddle, and the cradle board would rock on the horse's shoulder. The baby would learn the rhythm of the horse. Even in 1877, when the army was chasing our people, we had around 900 Nez Perce people. Less than 200 were fighting men. All the rest were old men, women, and children. And we drove 2,500 head of horses with us, 1,400 miles, and the army couldn't catch us. So that led to the Nez Perce saying, the army, they can't keep up with our old women. The horse made our people very rich, and people came from all around to trade for our horses. The Nez Perce word for horse is sikem. It's kind of like telling a dog, sikem. Sikem, that's the Nez Perce word for horse. But we had another horse that was so special we gave it its own name. We called these horses mamen. Now the mamen would command twice the price of any other horse. Even our enemies would literally risk their lives to raid one of our villages in the hopes of obtaining just one of these horses. Our cousins, the Flute people, had huge herds of these horses. And when the West was opened up, people were traveling through to seek their fortunes. They saw all of those horses, and they began to refer to them as a Palouse horse. Later on, the name started to shorten and became Appaloosa, and now you know the rest of the story. So we had our songs and our drums and our dances, but we also had instruments that we referred to as the tsupu mas or the tsupu mites. And these are the flutes and the whistles. And this comes from our word sapu, which means to blow. Now, the traditional Nez Perce flute was made from elderberry or mitip. And it was a very easy material to work with because it had a large soft pith that you could push out with a stick or dig out with a wire. Nowadays, most of the people that build these flutes, they call them their good friend Chief Black & Decker. And a really long drill bit. But long ago, in order to hollow out one of these limbs, you had to be a real crafty Indian. So you scoop out one end, and then you turn over rocks and logs looking for a grub. And you'd stick that grub in that hole, put a piece of hide over the end so he couldn't escape. Then you wave that end over the fire. And that little grub will want to get away from all of the heat, and he'll start to eat his way through. Crafty Indians are we. Indian power tools. Now, every once in a while, they'll get stuck along the way. So, being a crafty Indian, just send one in the way after him. Now you got these two grubs stuck in this tube. Now how do you get them out? Then you see your sister walking by out of the corner of your eye. You know, if I blow really hard in one end, they should come out. Take careful aim. Take in a deep breath. You blow as hard as you can. They come flying out. One hits her in the head. Yes. Now she's got grub all over her face. She runs in the house and she tells mom, or worse, she tells grandma. Now grandma, who normally can't walk without her tukas, comes running out of the house, shaking her tukas, hollering, "What's up, Kiko? That kapsits hotswell." I think we all know what Grandma just said. Grandma can't catch me. She's got to use a tukas. But then you get hungry and you go in the house and you sit down at the table right next to Grandma. Boy, that old lady's got a good memory. She'll grab you by the ear. "Can't get you, huh?" I don't remember anything after that. So this is the type of sound that you would have heard long ago. Some young man out there playing for his sweetheart. Because sometimes, the village, it didn't offer much privacy, and every once in a while, the two families, they may not get along with each other, so the only way for this couple to be together is to go out and play this flute. And so she would be sitting in her tent surrounded by her family. She might be preparing a meal, or she might be working on a pair of moccasins, and she'd hear this song way off in the distance, and she'd begin to smile, and her relatives would all look at her like, "What the heck is wrong with you?" It was said that every woman knew the songs of her man. She knew who that was out there, and she knew that that song was for her. Ilachni Katsiaoyo La'amna. Thank you, everybody, for being here to share these stories and this music, these dances. I hope that you enjoy your journey through Nez Perce country, and wherever your journeys may take you, you have a safe journey, and as you return to your homes, you find them in a good way just as you left them. We'll be here for a little bit. If you want to come take pictures, maybe ask some questions, do a little bit of shopping before you have to go mama mums. I know some of you have early flights. Ooh. Been there, done that. So, Ilachni Katsiaoyo, thank you very much, and Tots Kalawit. Good evening.